apparently Neanderthal man, see, and, I've tried to explain this to brothers and sisters before, but they always get off on some kind of tangent with me and want to go arguing, and that's why I don't talk a lot to people, because they can't get where I'm going. I've been told, oh, no, Europe, we were there first, and, that's named after Europa, a goddess named Europa. I'm going to submit to you. Now, I have to side with the Europeans on this. Afrocentrists are always trying to claim everybody's stuff. Seriously. Everything is not your thing, and everywhere was not our thing. However, in Neanderthal, Germany, it was determined, these archaeologists and these paleontologists and these people that dig up sites, they have established that Neanderthal man inhabited Europe, Western Asia, which is Europe, and Central Asia. They've also been found, or the remains for them have been found in the Balkans, in the caves of Croatia, in Italy, in Belgium, France, and in Spain. They roamed as far north as Britain and as far south as Spain, and from Central Europe they extended all the way into Central Asia and into the Middle East, and as far south as Israel. And I was trying to tell everyone before that what they call Canaan or Canaan land, for all you would-be Canaanites, Israel, prior to being called Israel, was called Canaan. And my research has shown that the original inhabitants of the land that you guys know of as Israel, which was Canaan, were Neanderthals. Now, there has been no evidence of Neanderthals in Africa, Australia, or America. Now, having said that, apparently, now this next part I'm going to give you out of, what is the name of it? National Geographic. Apparently, there was a type of man that came into the Neander Valley, or the German-European area, that came from Africa. And these individuals have been classified as Cro-Magnon man, and I think those were some of what you guys perceive as the brothers and the brethren from Africa, for those of you that are brethren of Africa. And, I think most people probably are at this point, including the Europeans, believe it or not. However, what we have going on here is there were some skirmishes. Now, they're trying to say that they don't know, well, let me back up. They've established that Neanderthal man is the missing link between man and ape. That has been established, or between mankind and ape. That has been established. What they're attempting to say is they have no idea whatever happened to or became of Neanderthal man, because he seems to have kind of disappeared. And their perception is that he must have hybridized or crossbred with this incoming man from Africa. Now, some people are saying that's not possible because they're two completely different species, so that never could have been the case. And I submit to you that exactly was the case, but it was not what everybody thinks. My perception is that Neanderthal man came down out of the caves. They did these raves coming out of the caves. I don't know how many people have seen the new version of The Time Machine. If you have not seen it, you should see it, because it is a very telling movie. Not the original Time Machine, even though that's cool too. You need to see the new version. Now, these individuals ran down out of the caves, and they would gather up individuals, and they'd take the people back. They'd rape the women and rape the men and eat some of everybody, and they would have these children. Now, there are some sisters that were able to escape with their children, and some were not. There were some sisters that were not able to escape, but at some point the children were able to escape. Now, the position of a lot of the so-called scholars is that the people that came over from Africa destroyed the Neanderthal man, which may be a part of why they're having such a problem with people that they identify as African. And again, had nothing to do with people from America, because we didn't go over there doing that kind of stuff. However, it is my perception that these individual brethren that came from what is now called Africa were trying to graft back in the children that had been the hybrids of these raped situations and circumstances. Now, what I am perceiving is the Jews, or what you guys call Jews, have been straight set up like our people. They are being framed, real talk, and misled, like our people are being framed and misled, like the Ku Klux Klan gets framed and misled, like the Bloods and the Crips, and everybody around the world gets framed and misled. The Arabs are getting framed and misled. It's a problem. But what I have found is, let me give you a couple of words before I tell you what I found. Get out your pens and papers and your dictionaries and what have you, because here we go. The first word I want to give you guys is this word mafia. And this is right out of my my Columbia Encyclopedia. Mafia is they were organized bands of Sicilian brigands, and that's spelled B-R-I-G-A-N-D-S, brigands, in the 19th and 20th centuries, which means 1700s and 1800s. Now, they had no hierarchic organization, and each group operated on its own. They originated in feudal times, and that's key here. You guys need to do more research about this terminology, feudal and feudalism, and comprehend what that's about. And then I can help you comprehend how a lot of people have gotten set up. In the feudal, well, let me go on to say this. They originated in feudal times, and what happened was there were lords that hired the brigands to guard their estates, and in exchange for guarding the estate, these brigands acquired protection from royal authority. Now, the legal authorities were useless with them because justice was obtained directly in the form of what some people call vendettas, other people call them feuds, but you have to comprehend what we're dealing with here. Their influence has a tendency over the years and over the generations, their influence has a tendency to increase based on political corruption. Now, they spread into the United States through immigration, and that's immigration with an E, and they created massive amounts of trouble in Louisiana on the Mississippi River, where they found a lot of Washita and Natchez and Natchee. They found a lot of our people up and down the Mississippi River. Now, Mussolini was able to suppress the mafia, but after World War II, that was the war with Germany, they were able to, they showed signs of revival in his area, but they've always been in this area. Now, a lot of people are not going to be able to keep up, but I'm going to start tying this together and connecting the dots for you so you know what we're dealing with. I'm going to give you the word vendetta because the first thing they used out of this dictionary definition or encyclopedic definition was vendetta. A vendetta is vengeance in Italian. The word vendetta means vengeance in Italian, and it means the obligation of kinship or a kinship group to avenge a wrong that has been done to a relative. The family is the only social unit with authority, and no state can compel order from these people. A state, in order to deal with them, what has to take place is something called composition. A state has to attain a certain amount of cohesion, that means unified oneness, in order to stop this private vengeance that people go into. Now, in order for this to stop, something called composition has to take place. Now, composition it started out in medieval and primitive law, and it means prevention of retribution for acts of violence. And the way to do that is by paying money to the injured person or their family. Excuse me. Now, once this composition occurs, well, first of all, if the individual fails to do the composition, which is to make the payment, now it doesn't justify whatever act took place, but it usually quells the efforts of blood retaliation against whatever they conceive as an offender or their family. Now, the amount that an individual has to pay in composition depends on the rank and status of the person that got injured or slain. Now, this is not something that we practiced. We didn't know this get down. It wasn't even our whole agenda. We didn't know nothing about it. These people came over here. We didn't know anything at all about what they were doing or what they were involved in or what they were about. But one of the things that this payment is supposed to do is it has a tendency to discourage disorder by providing a substitute to the family that has the individual that was murdered or slain for retribution for killing or injuring their so-called family member. And our brothers, especially the ones that are in these gangs, have this whole, they're trying to do this vendetta thing, and it's not really their thing. And if it was their thing, they'd understand it, and they'd do it differently. Instead of killing one another, they'd be killing someone else. However, what takes place is the composition reflects a transition from these feuds of blood revenge and vendettas to one where socially dangerous acts like this become a primary concern of the whole state rather than private persons or their private families acting alone. So, now, one of the most striking things that comes out of this, these blood feud, which is the right to take someone else's life for a life, and these were very common in Corsica and Italy and in the mountains of the United States in the southeast United States. And one of the reasons for that, again, is you have to get into the whole tribal thing, the incest thing. Now, it goes on to say that once the state creates this composition and this cohesive unification of working together, where the state as a whole deals with these incidences, not only is a retribution paid for the damages to the person, the so-called criminal also has to pay a fine to the state. What that results in is what you call modern-day criminal law. However, what happens is you have something else that takes place. And I'm going to give you the definition of feud so you guys can start to try to see what I'm saying with these words. The definition of feud is private warfare, especially between family groups. Originally, the general form of justice, the blood vengeance feud, which was a vendetta, is characteristic of most societies where a government either has not yet arisen or a government has decayed. That's where we are right now. We're in a situation where the United States government has been thoroughly infiltrated through people who have blood feud agendas, and some of the people are misleading all of the other people who also have agendas. And everybody's getting hung up and caught up out there on not knowing what's going on. And the feud between the Hatfields and the McCoys was a prime example. So